The Dodekannissa is the name of a group of Greek islands that is located in the southeast of the Aegean, just off the Turkish coast. It warrants more than its name of 12 islands. Here, there are more than 19 inhabited and around 50 small uninhabited islands. Kos, green pearl of the Aegean, an historic oasis beneath the Greek sun. Not the largest of the Dodekannissa Islands, but certainly one of its most fascinating. The capital of the island is Chora Kós. Almost half the island's inhabitants live here, close to the lively and historic Mandraki harbour. For 2,000 years, this has been the nerve centre of the island. A modern collection of sculptures point to the island's most famous son, Hippocrates, whose greatest legacy is the Hippocratic Oath of today. The history of this ancient settlement began in 14 BC, when the island's capital was founded here. It has a well-protected natural harbour and is close to the Asian continent. Following their arrival from Jerusalem in the 14th century, the Order of the Knights of Malta built this huge fortified complex. The Crusader castle of Nerazzia covers almost half the peninsula and even today protects Mandraki harbour. But following their defeat on the neighbouring island of Rhodes, the fortress was handed over to the Turks in 1523. With this, the glorious days of the Crusades came to an end. The romantic ruins on Kos Harbour, the bulwark of the Knights of St. John, dominate the city. Nearby is the Platia Platanu. In the centre of the square is an ancient tree planted by Hippocrates. It was here that the famous doctor taught his students, and where Paul the Apostle is said to have taught Christianity beneath the shady branches of this huge tree. Tourists relax next to a small Turkish well, and the minaret of the Islamic Haji Hassan Mosque rises above the square. Next to the mosque are the ancient ruins of Agora, that was first discovered after an earthquake in 1933. The Platia Eleftherias is the main square of today's Kos. The spacious square is surrounded by numerous buildings and a museum. The Archaeological Museum is located in a futuristic-looking Italian building that dates back to the 1930s. It features sculptures and also floor and wall mosaics. There are stone busts and statues of the Roman and Hellenistic eras that provide a good insight into the imaginative culture of a golden age. The island's cafes are a good place to relax and also absorb the island's history. In the square, a number of steps lead up to the city's cathedral, the Agia Paraskevi. It's not a large cathedral, but extremely modern and well located in the centre of the town. Its interior is adorned with wall paintings in traditional Greek style. As is customary in Greece, local families donated money for this magnificent display. Here there's a small train that takes visitors to various sites. In 1934, Italian archaeologists discovered the Casa Romana amid the ruins of the central thermal baths, of which only part of the floor has survived. This rebuilt villa dates back to the 3rd century and indicates how the Romans lived in ancient Kos. The walls have since been reinforced and roofs have been added to the Roman dwellings. 3 yards with small wells are encircled by 2-storey arcades. The existence of latrines surprises most visitors and indicates the high standard of living of this period. The master builders of old were highly skilled. The acoustics in the Aegean, a small Roman music theatre, are truly remarkable. Opposite is a large excavation site that contains impressive remains that date back 500 years. The blend of archaeology here is unique. A Hellenic sports area, Roman baths, all covered by an early Christian basilica. As a city, Kos has succeeded in blending together the remains of antiquity with contemporary times. Outside the city is the simple rural life of Greece. Only 4 kilometres from the city, high in the Dikeos Mountains, is one of the island's most important sites, the Asklipion, an ancient hospital and sanctuary. It was here that the Greeks worshipped the god of medicine, who was later named Aesculapius by the Romans. This was a place of both healing and ritual sacrifice. A mighty earthquake destroyed the complex, and much of what remained was used to build the harbour's castle and for various dwellings and mosques in Kos. Picturesque rocky bays, a mild climate, lots of fresh air and a crystal blue sea. The winding road leads to the village of Kefalos that has 2,300 inhabitants and from below looks like a small fortified complex. Kefalos has much historical significance, as it was built on the ruins of the first capital of the island, and Hippocrates was born here in 460 BC. Its white houses and narrow alleys are free of traffic, and it's as though time has stood still. The protected bay of Kefalos has endless sandy beaches and also rocky areas. A paradise for all. On the coast are the remains of the small early Christian basilica of Agios Stephanos. It's very well preserved and set in a beautiful location. Italian archaeologists rebuilt many of its granite columns, although many have since collapsed. But several of its walls are in good condition. The west of the island is a haven of tranquility. The scenery is natural and unspoilt. Antimachia Castle was built in the 13th century by the Venetians and later expanded by the Knights of St. John. Its mighty external walls are most impressive. The interior of the castle has become overgrown by nature. Only a few cisterns and 2 small chapels remain. In times of danger, many farmers from the surrounding area have sought shelter here. Mastikari is located on the island's northern coast. The small harbour has a colourful array of fishing boats and yachts. Its 200 inhabitants are wary of tourism. Fishermen check their nets and prepare for their nightly catch. The local inhabitants exist mainly from agriculture and fishing. Close by are the island's northern sandy beaches, magnificent and natural, ideal for sunbathing and swimming. And there's a good assortment of colourful sunbeds. There are lots of cafes and restaurants, and Greek hospitality is the order of the day. The road travels inland across green hills to the island's only mountain, Dikeos. At the roadside, blossoming cacti highlight the sun-scorched arid terrain of the mountain slopes. Asfendiu Church belongs to Lagudi, one of 5 small mountain villages that have amalgamated for administrative reasons. The remarkable paintings on the walls and ceiling of Our Lady's Church are quite recent and show the Holy Virgin Mary with baby Jesus. Splendid icons displayed on posts and hanging on walls emphasize the Byzantine style of this remote picture book church. Finally, there's a view of the former salt mines of Tigaki, where during the last century around 20,000 hundredweight of salt was mined. Today, many water and wading birds rest here during the winter months. Zia is the island's perfect mountain village. In the past, the abundance of water in this area brought the village much prosperity, but now its inhabitants profit from tourism. From the village square, the road leads along a mountain ridge, flanked by several souvenir shops and taverns that await the next tourists. Fascinating landscapes and the historic monuments of many epochs make the Greek island of Kos a jewel of the Aegean. Symi is a beautiful island, only 4 sea miles away from the Turkish coast and 42 kilometres northwest of Rhodes. The ferry leads to one of the most beautiful cities in the Aegean and the beginning of a wonderful adventure. The houses look like a scene from a picture postcard, and their design often surprises the many tourists who come here each day. Symi is characterised by its yellow neoclassical houses with their shutters and doors in blue and red, as well as their tiled roofs. Extending on the hills around the harbour, the houses are laid out like a theatrical auditorium. At odds with any other Greek island, this is something that one would expect to see on the French Riviera. Symi gives the impression that it was once prosperous. The houses are in good condition, well maintained and newly painted. It's easy to understand why it's a popular sightseeing destination. Here, there aren't any hotel complexes that interfere with the splendid ensemble of elegant old houses and captivating harbour. It's a truly picturesque holiday resort. In antiquity, the first settlers existed by diving for the natural sponges that are to be found just off the island. They are cleaned, dried, and offered for sale. The island's inhabitants were once renowned for their shipbuilding skills. It is believed that ships were built here during the Trojan Wars and that they were much sought after due to their swiftness in the water. The fjord-like harbour bay of Gialos was noted by Pliny to be one of the most secure harbours in the world. However, in more recent times, it was occupied by the Italians in the Second World War. The fascinating view from Castle Mountain takes in the romantic, picturesque harbour and a magnificent panoramic view of the surroundings. The ferry slowly leaves the harbour in the direction of another interesting location. The rocky and desolate slopes descend to the blue waters of the Aegean. After a drive to the island's southern coast, we head for a famous place of pilgrimage, the Panormitis Monastery, that is located in an isolated and sheltered bay. The monastery complex is quite large and contains more than 500 beds for those pilgrims who travel here to worship alongside the monastery's 5 remaining monks. In 1905, a bell tower was added to the monastery. The chessboard-like monastery courtyard is encircled by a 2-storey high gallery. Visitors are allowed to roam freely and even have access to the roof areas. The main interest of the pilgrims is an icon of Archangel Michael that is situated within the monastery church and is believed to work miracles. The patron saint was renowned as a slayer of dragons, victor of Lucifer, and protector of the island. It's not easy to leave this fascinating place. However, there are further islands to explore. Rhodes is the largest island of the Dodekannissa. Since antiquity, this special location has brought it both power and wealth. On the northernmost tip of the island is the fascinating metropolis of Chora Ródos, whose harbour entrance was once adorned by the seventh wonder of the world, the Colossus of Rhodes. Byzantines, Arabs, the Knights of the Order of St. John, Ottomans and Italians. Each one influenced the ever-changing history of the island that was first settled here in 400 BC. The Gothic governor's palace is of typical Italian design and resembles the Doge's palace in Venice, that also blends with the Moorish caliph's palace. The small harbour was built at the same time as the ancient city, but the legendary lighthouse has long since gone, and today excursion boats and yachts crowd the island's former trading harbour that has a rich and dramatic past. The well-sheltered Mandrake harbour is frequented by ferry boats and is also the starting point of many of the island's excursions. It is believed that the ships once travelled into the harbour through the open legs of the Colossus of Rhodes. A colourful assortment of small boats and yachts lie at anchor, tightly packed into the small harbour. Three of 13 original medieval windmills are located on the pier, towards the neighbouring Emborio harbour, where luxury liners lie at anchor close to the walls of the old town. Rhodes was one of the most important cities in antiquity and fended off attack thanks to its impressively tall city walls. But the mighty-looking fortification was in reality a deception, as it was far from sturdy. But its many defensive powers and pinnacles had their desired effect. During this time, a city wall was built, with strong 4-metre thick walls, towers, defensive walls and ditches, a masterpiece of fortress architecture. One of the most beautiful gates is the Thalassini Gate that dates back to the golden age of chivalry, framed by two huge circular towers and adorned with well-preserved figures of saints that symbolized the loyalty of the knights. Within the once invisible castle moat, now there are plants, and it's also popular with joggers and walkers. The fortified old town is accessible only via high stone bridges. In the 15th century, there were 3 attempts to storm its walls. In 1440 and 1444 the Egyptians failed, and in 1480 the Ottomans. It was subsequently reinforced. Square towers were replaced by circular towers, and triple gate complexes had tangled corridors added, further protection for the fortress. In 1306, the Knights of the Order of Malta purchased the island. Here the Order's courageous knights built their main base for the glorious crusades that were meant to free the Holy Land from the claws of the unbelievers. At the city's highest point is the huge palace of the Grand Master, the monumental junction of the Street of the Knights, and the command post of the Christian Order. The Grand Master was the highest dignitary of the Order of the Knights of Malta, a lifetime's office. Today his former residence looks as though it was abandoned only recently. The splendid attire and family charts of the Grand Master indicate the unlimited power and magnificence of this God-fearing knight and ultimate commander. The solemn atmosphere and priceless furnishings of the rooms are most impressive. All this on a small island in the Mediterranean. The view from above this huge inner courtyard gives a true perspective of the dimensions of the huge complex. Here, the Middle Ages are still very much alive. The Palace of the Grand Master also had much social significance. Those who were permitted to enter here were fully accepted by one and all. Italian traders from Amalfi founded the order in 1070 that was originally dedicated to the care of sick pilgrims and crusaders. After a total of 7 Christian crusades, was unable to defeat Islam, and the reconquering of Jerusalem failed, the Knights of the Order of St. John were driven out of Palestine. First, they sought shelter in Cyprus, and next conquered the island of Rhodes that was then under the rule of Portuguese pirates. The fortress was transformed into the huge Grand Master Palace, and the knights' warlike fleet was also feared just as much as the pirates. The Street of the Knights leads from the hospital up the hill to the Grand Master Palace, a unique ensemble of Gothic medieval architecture set amid the Mediterranean. The main buildings of the various groups of knights were erected along the main street. It was here that the knights met and conferred according to their membership of various European regions. These inns also accommodated pilgrims on their journey to Jerusalem, who frequently stopped off in Rhodes for a few days' rest. During the time of the Knights of St. John, horsemen and young noblemen gathered here, each wearing the shining red capes and cross of their order. For more than 200 years, the Grand Master Palace and the Knights Hospital were the island's most important buildings. Today, the Order's well-preserved hospital is open to the general public. Only works of art from the Mycenaean to the Hellenistic epoch are exhibited here, due to the fact that the Romans took most of its treasures to Rome. Artistic floor mosaics and unique stone sculptures indicate the island's long history. Following the capture of Rhodes by the Turks, the city was transformed into one that contained many elements of Turkish design. Bell towers were transformed into minarets and churches into mosques. The Turkish forced the local population to settle outside the city walls. Fine mosques were built, and the medieval structures have been extremely well preserved. The old Turkish library is situated at the end of a bazaar street with a pleasant courtyard. Subsequent invasions brought little change for the worse. On the contrary, in 1912, the Italians restored the medieval district. Even the bombing of the island by the Germans in the Second World War caused little damage. The old city of Rhodes survived. In the Jewish district is the Kar de Shalom synagogue that dates back to the 16th century. It has been fully restored thanks to public donation. The old town of Rhodes is now tantamount to a protected artistic monument. Everything that has survived is well maintained and cared for. The impressive remains of the old Gothic church building of Panagia tu Bourgogne are reminiscent of the romantic age of chivalrous and royal knights. Sometimes it's possible to observe a carpet being made, but this is mainly done to attract the tourists and encourage them to buy. Hippocrates Square is the most popular meeting place in the old town. Around the fountain, there is a variety of charming terrace cafes and restaurants that are the ideal place to sit and relax. And also the large steps of the Castellania and the surrounding souvenir shops. Several small lanes have all the atmosphere of bygone times. The stone arches complement the houses on both sides of the river and add an intimate atmosphere. Just off the tourist trail, the narrow lanes are suddenly calm and empty. They may seem to be momentarily disorientating, but they usually lead back to the main street. Every step is a journey through 2,400 years of ancient history. the non-conformity of the lanes and alleys has its own special appeal. Suddenly, a luxury liner appears in the harbour. The modern new town beyond the walls has good parks and sandy beaches set in front of hotel complexes. An endless array of parasols is essential for those who like to lie in the sun. On the hill above the city, the Monte Smith, are the impressive remains of ancient Rhodes, a large stadium and semicircular amphitheatre. But the ruins of the Acropolis are only a shadow of the former splendour of this ancient island metropolis. Philerimos is located on the island's west coast, close to the city of Rhodes. The Crusaders built this complex on historic ground. In the 5th century AD, Byzantine monks built the first chapel on this site. The splendid condition of today's monastery and its colourful mosaic illustrations is due to the Italians who carried out extensive renovation work here. The Knights' Church covers only a small section of the ancient Athena Polias temple, whose massive foundations were only recently uncovered. The journey travels to the interior of the island. Amid a green wooded mountain landscape is Psinthios, a mountain village with fine houses and village square. The scant landscape smells of herbs and shines out in lush green. Even in winter, the climate is good and helps the olive trees to flourish, the ideal climate for this heat-seeking tree. Petaloudis, the Valley of Butterflies. For many years, this picturesque location has been a popular attraction for tourists who usually come here in organised groups. A creek that contains water throughout the year flows through a narrow valley and forms romantic waterfalls, cascades and small pools. Until some years ago, there were thousands of harlequin butterflies to be seen here between July and September. Close by, this isolated place hides a gem of Byzantine art, the Agios Nikolaos Funtukli Church. A Byzantine functionary built this isolated church in commemoration of his children who succumbed to the plague. The interior of the church is adorned with colourful frescoes. Various scenes feature the holy sacraments and also infants in paradise. Bumpy, narrow roads lead up through a wooded area. The adventurous journey across the island has begun. Tarpiges, the Valley of the Seven Springs. The Romans appreciated the coolness of this region during the hot summer months. The clear water of the Seven Springs forms a small creek that trickles its way beneath the dense leafy canopy of ancient plane trees. Legend has it that this was once a favourite haunt of nymphs, a fantasy that's quite easy to believe. Finally, we reach the east coast and Sambika Bay. At the foot of Sambika Mountain, there's a small church. During the ascent of Sambika Mountain, the view becomes increasingly spectacular. At the end of the steep path, there's a small white church that is part of Sambika Monastery. Exposed to the elements, it sits high on a rock. Mountains, coastline and beaches are the colourful and attractive setting for this monastery. The nuns left their tiny church long ago, but their place of worship has remained. Feraklos Hill is an imposing sight. Originally, the Byzantines built a large fortress on its summit. In 1306, the Knights of the Order of St. John conquered this fortress and subsequently enlarged it. An additional wall was added because of the threat of invasion by the Ottoman Empire. Lindos, the most beautiful village in Rhodes, with Paulus Bay and an acropolis that is located high above the sea. Thanks to the preservation of its ancient monuments, this place has managed to survive. Houses that once belonged to sea captains indicate the wealth of the village's inhabitants, with classical entrances and decorations. In ancient times, Lindos was a powerful and rich maritime and trading centre, with its own shipyards, Sicilian colonies, and the first official maritime rite in the world. After an arduous climb of 116 metres, a few steep steps finally lead to the entrance of the castle. Lindos Castle was first built by the Byzantines, but in 1312 the Order of the Knights of Malta almost completely rebuilt it. In 1936, Italian archaeologists began to rebuild the temple's columns and concreted the terrace. The optical effect is most impressive. More about the temple's renovation. The inclusion of iron, inferior sandstone and concrete had disastrous results. Thus the ancient ruins had to be strengthened. The iron was replaced with stone and the columns were given additional support. Many who come here wander above the scattered stones, oblivious to the ancient buildings that were once here, the Long Hall, the large steps, and Johannes Church. This magnificent setting is the most beautiful photographic opportunity that the Greek island has to offer. A bulwark of the West in a strategic location, a structure with 1,000 years of history, overwhelming, mighty, and unique. Further south are the ruins of Asklipion Castle, surrounded by the rugged and fascinating natural landscape. The remains of the walls of a medieval castle of the Knights of the Order of St. John lie amid the isolated mountain landscape. The imposing ruins are a reminder of once hostile times. Some of the castle's surviving corridors are an indication of the interior. It's an interesting and accessible place, but not without its dangers. We travel by car across the mountains to the island's west coast, passing the modest village of Mesanagros, which is located high in the Kukulyari Mountains. Narrow lanes dominate this simple, unspoilt village. The car journey through the wild mountain terrain becomes increasingly adventurous. Suddenly and surprisingly is the village of Siana, that consists of few houses but boasts a large Neo-Byzantine church. As in other similar old churches, huge crystal chandeliers hang down from the ceiling and icons and sacred objects decorate the interior. Its towers and domes are in strong contrast with the nearby small houses of the village. We arrive at the rocky west coast, the end of the road, the end of the island. On a single rock is the impregnable Crusader fortress of Monolithos. The small church situated at the top of the rock continues to be maintained to the present day and contains a very special atmosphere. The unique panoramic view across the entire west coast and the rocky bay deep below helps one to understand the power and influence of the Order of the Knights of St. John. The journey north leads inland to Cretinia. And also here, amid this remote mountain landscape, are the ruins of an ancient fortress. A ruined yet impressive fortress of the Crusaders is located on a rock ledge. Due to its excellent strategic location, 75 kilometres of coastline were once surveyed from here. The Minoans are believed to have been the first settlers in this region, and they named their new home after their original home of Crete. And legend has it that it was here that the sun god Helios once kissed the nymph Rhode. A few kilometers north along the coast, and the smallest of the three ancient cities of Rhodes, appears from within a sweet-smelling forest of pine trees. Ancient Kamiros was only discovered in 1859 by farmers who came across some graves here, but many of the objects that they discovered were stolen. Thus today, there are only the remains of the original foundations, but within them it's possible to discern streets, baths and temple areas. This glimpse into the past makes Hellenistic history come alive once more. This masterpiece of ancient city planning is one of the most important archaeological sites on the island of Rhodes. It was here that the sun was born, and where God, knights and tourists have always sought good fortune and fall in love with the enchanting islands of the Dodekannissa.